What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. It is time. It's time for the post-weigh-in recap for UFC Vegas 7. This is the absolute moneymaker here when it comes to betting on mixed martial arts, brought to you by odds.com. First thing, make sure you share this video, make sure you hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe right here to Odds HQ. Give me a follow over at the Die Hard MMA podcast, at Die Hard MMA Pod on Twitter. That's where I'm going to be tweeting out any add-on plays that I make. So if you don't want to miss any of my bets, head on right over there. This is a weird one, everybody. We've got some moving parts. Things are going to be mixing and matching. Let's get right on into this. So the first fight of the evening, we've got Timur Valiev welcoming Trevin Jones to the UFC. So this is one they ended up doing a catch weight at 140 since Jones is coming here on such short notice. Timur Valiev, he looked in great shape, absolutely shredded. He was moving well, like what I saw from him. Trevin Jones, on the other hand, he missed weight by a half pound. Now, since this is a catch weight, he doesn't get that half pound allowance. So they brought the box in and everything, and he still couldn't quite squeeze out that 140-pound limit. So they actually gave him a little bit of time. He ended up weighing in last. He came in the very last person, and he made 139.5. He seemed okay. I kind of expected him to be a little bit dragged out. Kind of expected him to look bad, drained, sucked out because he had to get that extra pound off. But he looked fine. Gave a big flex, and then when they faced off, it was a very intense stare down. This dude Jones is coming in to make a statement. Now, obviously, I've got to favor Timur Valiev here, but I haven't had much opportunity to actually look into the skill set of Jones, and he looked good. So I don't know. That one may be a dog spot. Obviously, we're not going to have a line on that one most likely this early, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of research. Probably just going to end up being a fireball or pass situation because Valiev should be the rightful favorite. And unless I find something that I really love here to roll the dice on Timur Valiev, he's the one that struggled to cut weight coming in late short notice, so I don't know if I'll be able to back him here. Then we've got Carlton Minus taking on Matthew, and I'm not going to try and say his last name this time. So we got Carlton Minus at 170. He looked a bit soft. That's something I've seen from him in his last fight, actually. He looked a little bit soft, and he didn't really impress too much his last time out. Now, Matt, on the other hand, he came in, he looked pumped up, ready to go, looked good, big flex, confident. It was a respectful weigh-in face-off, both guys keeping their distance, so not a lot to report from that side of things, but I kind of had a slight lean to Carlton Minus earlier in the week, and I feel like I'm flip-flopping here. I feel like at this point I lean more towards Matt. Carlton Minus fights out of the Alaska circuit. We know there's some really bad fighters coming off of there, so it's not a good regional scene. So even though he's looked okay over there, he's looked technically pretty solid. Matt's a killer. He's this guy that's going to come in here, go barreling forward, force the action, and I can absolutely see him getting a finish here. So that one has changed. I definitely went from favoring Carlton Minus to favoring Matt, and especially seeing the kind of condition they're looking at. Matt definitely is in better shape. He looks like he is more ready to go. So I'm probably just going to end up passing on that one, but my lean is switched over to Matt. Ike Villanueva taking on Jordan Wright. This is a light heavyweight fight, and Ike has some abs. That's the first thing I noticed. He came in looking overweight, out of shape in his last fight, and he really seems like I said in the podcast earlier this week, he has taken this camp very seriously. So it looks in great shape, lost a bunch of weight. You can see the abs. He weighed in at 205.5. Jordan Wright coming in here short notice. He weighed in at 200. He came in 5 full pounds under the 205-pound limit, so not really sure how to feel about that. He looked in pretty solid shape, and he did look a little bit nervous, though. He was breathing heavy. I'm really not quite sure what to make of that. And then when they faced off, Wright just feels awkward to me. He's got a karate style, so he has a really strange stance, and then Ike looked much bigger than, well, not much bigger, but he looked a decent chunk bigger than Wright, so I still kind of have to favor Ike here. He's the one coming in on a full training camp. He's the bigger man, and as long as he doesn't get clipped hard enough to knock him out clean with the awkward striking of Wright, I think he's just going to be able to do more in this fight and get the victory. So I had a bet on Ike last time out against his previous opponent. That got canceled because of the switch. Now I'm looking at maybe reloading and going on Ike here again. We'll have to see. He may struggle with the awkward movement and karate stance of Wright, so that's the only thing that's giving me a little bit of pause, is that this short notice fighter is a very dangerous and strange short notice fighter. Even though he's a can crusher, I don't know if Ike is prepared to combat the movement that he's going to face in this particular fight. So I don't know. I'm going to have to think on that one a little bit longer. Austin Hubbard taking on Joe Solecki. I hope you got in with me early. I tweeted out that I was on Austin Hubbard way earlier this week. He is now a pick'em, and he's headed towards being the favorite. A flood of money is coming in right now on Austin Hubbard. We beat that line move. We did our job, and I think he should have been the rightful favorite in this fight in the first place. He's been tested against much higher level of competition here, and even though Joe Solecki is a great grappler and a high-level jiu-jitsu black belt, we've seen that just doesn't work against Austin Hubbard. Now, Hubbard looked great. Looked absolutely excellent on the scales, business as usual. He was excited, he moved well, nothing to be concerned with, and kind of the same thing on the other side of Solecki. He left in a little bit of a hurry. I don't know if I should read too much into that, but they faced off. Both men were respectful, looking confident. Really, from the weigh-ins, there's not a whole lot to take away from here. If you liked your fighter, you'll probably still like your fighter. If you liked fading the other guy, there's just not a whole lot to take from this one, unfortunately speaking. So I'm going to stick to my guns. I like Hubbard, and I like that we beat the line move. Amanda Lemos taking on Mizuki Inoue. Both women come in at 115.5 pounds. Amanda Lemos, for dropping 2 weight classes here, looked pretty awesome. She looked great on the scales. She seemed excited. She moved well. I don't think she had a bad weight cut. I'm really impressed with how she looked coming in a new weight class, not 1 but 2 down. Mizuki Inoue, business as usual. She's not a very well-muscled girl. She's pretty slim, so she looked fine. Nothing to report there, and it was a really good stare down. They got into each other's faces a little bit. They sized each other up well, and Amanda Lemos looks like she sizes up well against Mizuki, so I like that underdog spot. Again, we beat the line move. Lemos is a smaller underdog now. We got her at plus 140 a little earlier in the week. I like that spot. Now we just got to let variance do its thing, see if she can get the win here. This is the big one here. This one is really, really weird. So Dwight Grant weighs in at 169.9. He looked excellent. Added some muscle on, big flex. He looked great, ready to go. His opponent never showed up. So I'm not sure what happened, but Dwight Grant's short notice replacement is simply not on the card to be found. Now, Daniel Rodríguez comes in here at 175.5. He looked great, in good shape. He's facing Takashi Sato, or is he? Takashi weighed in at 170 pounds, 0.5. He looked like he packed on some muscle. You can see some giant abs on the dude. He looked like he was ready to go, but he's out. I don't know what happened. I got to assume that maybe he had more of a rough weight cut than we're seeing on the scales, and the doctors probably pulled him from the card. I haven't confirmed that, but what I have confirmed is that fight is off, and now we have Daniel Rodríguez taking on Dwight Grant. And this is actually a really great fight. I mean, both these guys are at 170. Both these guys use their hands more often than not. Daniel Rodríguez has a decent little nasty submission game on him. Both guys have some wrestling ability, so I really think this one's going to be fun. We lost a fight on the card, unfortunately, and that sucks, but this is a fantastic matchup, and Grant was really sizing up Rodríguez. When they faced off, it was a really good face-off. You could tell Dwight Grant, he's just chomping at the bit. He doesn't care who gets in there with him. He's just ready to fight. Now, I was tempted to take a stab at Takashi Sato as a nice, big, chunky dog. Really happy I didn't. Obviously, those bets push. You're going to get your money back at this point since he dropped out, but I'm looking forward to this fight here with Rodríguez and Grant, and I feel like I'm going to get a good spot here on Dwight Grant. He's going to be the favorite. He was a huge favorite and a decent-sized favorite against his opponent before this, so I expect him to be the favorite here against Rodríguez. However, Rodríguez has some good hands. He's got a little bit of momentum coming behind him. He was the favorite here against Takashi Sato. Maybe we get a nice short line. I'm going to look to bet Dwight Grant here. I think he's going to have the reach advantage. He's got a real awkward body style where he's got a real short torso, but he's got these really long, lanky arms. And considering both these guys are movement-based boxers, this is going to be a technical striking match. And I've seen Rodríguez get clipped and dropped before, and I think Dwight Grant is going to be just a little bit too much for him. So I'm going to look forward to that one. That may end up being a late add-on. Obviously, this just went down. We don't have a line, so I can't make an official prediction or bet right now, but that's what I'm expecting to happen. I'll probably take a flyer on Grant when it does happen. Mariya Agapova and Shana Dobson. Mariya came in at 125.5. Shana Dobson came in at 126. Not a whole lot to report from either woman. I mean, Agapova had a little bounce in her step. She's always a little peppy, a little in a good mood, ready to go. Good sizing up. Both these women came in. It was respectful. You could see that Mariya has a decent bit of a size advantage here, but not a whole lot to report. I mean, she's a massive, massive favorite, and we don't expect much besides murder in this fight anyway. Marcin Prachniow. This is the one that I had my eyes on, and unfortunately, I'm a little deflated here from the weigh-ins. He looked normal. He came in at 205.5. He wasn't shredded. You could see his abs were hiding under there a little bit. So I kind of expected maybe he's going to come back in and be juiced to all hell and just have massive muscle mass on him. But he didn't. He looked relatively normal, which leads me to believe that he probably was training. You know, he wasn't out there taking the supplements, and he didn't roll off the couch. He looked decent. So I think he prepared for this fight. So I'm not sure what kind of a Marcin Prachniow we're expecting to see. Mike Rodríguez came in at 205.5. He looked decent. He looked like he was in a good move, but he also looked a little bit deflated. So I don't know if that's maybe more cardio and conditioning, or maybe he's coming in a little bit off on this fight. This one was a Mike Rodríguez or pass for me to begin with, and now I'm starting to think it's just a pass or pass, because both these guys are completely untrustworthy. We have no idea what we're getting from Marcin Prachniow, and the fact that he came in half-decent shape, I don't know what to expect from him. I was hoping we'd see a spare tire. I was hoping we would see, just one of these guys looking flabby, looking awful, so that I can make a read and go against them here, because I do want to fade both of these fighters. Honestly, I don't know what to expect. Maybe just the under is going to be the play here, because you can see there's a huge size advantage for Rodríguez, and he did look a little deflated, but as long as he's still got the same pop in his punches, we've seen Prachniow go down with a glass chin in the first round multiple times. We've seen the same thing from Rodríguez. He's gotten hurt, he's gotten finished himself several times, so if Prachniow has made adjustments, if he's made improvements and he comes in here ready to go, maybe he pulls the upset here and gets it done early. So maybe the under there, but beside that, that one's just going to be a sit back and watch fireball and popcorn type of fight. Ovince St. Preux taking on Alonzo Menifield. This is another weird one. So Alonzo Menifield comes in at 204.5 pounds, and he is jacked. This guy is an absolute Adonis. I have no idea how he has that much muscle on his frame, and I don't know how he makes 205 pounds. Ovince St. Preux was the first person to weigh in. He came in at 205.5 pounds, and he looked a little slimmed down. I mean, he looked in decent shape, but he definitely looked less inflated than he normally does. So I don't know if he just hit the road after his last fight, and that's all he did was road work to cut the weight and get down. Maybe he doesn't have as much muscle on him purposefully. Maybe he focused on his gas tank for this one. I have no idea. The only thing I can take from the face-offs is that OSP is huge compared to Alonzo Menifield. Much, 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 much bigger. So I really don't know what to make of this one. At first, I leaned OSP, especially at the dog price. Then I kind of flipped, and I was thinking Alonzo Menifield. He talked in an interview about how he came in shape. He came in light. Even though this is a short notice replacement fight for him, it wasn't a problem because he's been doing nothing but work on his cardio recently, so he had zero issues making weight. Well, now after seeing the face-offs, I really don't know how to digest that information, because Ovince St. Preux, if he did the same thing, if he's missing that muscle mass because he's been doing nothing but cardio, he could employ a similar game plan to Devin Brown Bear Clark. And even though Alonzo Menifield has more of a cardio-based stance here for this fight, I don't know if that's going to be effective against such a bigger man. OSP might just be able to grind on him and wear him out, and if he does that, then he's going to have a decent shot at winning a decision and potentially getting a submission. But we've seen nothing but solid takedown defense from Alonzo Menifield, and then obviously he has those absolute bombs, missiles for hands. Yikes. So I was hoping to get in here and make a read for you guys, but honestly, there's so many questions around this fight that at this point, I don't have one for you. I'm going to keep trying to digest that information and see maybe what I come up with. But OSP coming in so slim has me a little bit concerned. I feel like this is Alonzo Menifield or pass. I think more than likely he defends the takedown, he clips OSP, and he gets that knockout, but don't be shocked if OSP comes out here and wrestles his ass off. Main event time, Pedro Munhoz taking on Frankie the Answer Edgar. Pedro Munhoz came in at 136. He looked in good shape, no issues, business as usual. Frankie Edgar came in for the very first time at 135.5 pounds, and he looked great. He looked fantastic, y'all. Absolutely shredded. Not sucked out, not gaunt. You couldn't see, like, the cheekbones. He did not look like some of the previous fighters we've seen coming down. He looked at home. He looked ready to go. He moved well, and when he got off the scales, he screamed, "Let's go!" He's ready. He is pumped up. And you could tell at the face-offs, he is dialed in. He was intense getting up there on Pedro Munhoz, and he sized up really well. Pedro is obviously just a little bit bigger than Frankie still, but they are almost the same exact size, and Frankie's got that reach advantage. Guys, I was very, very tempted to take a flyer on Frankie Edgar, and I told you all that I was planning on waiting to see how wide that line would get, and now that the face-offs have been completed, obviously money is coming in on Pedro Munhoz, but it's making me scratch my head because this is one of those spots where I'm looking at the weigh-ins and I'm going, how did Pedro impress you? Pedro came in the same that he always does. He looked exactly like he usually does at weigh-ins. No different, no added muscle mass, no extra intensity. He was just Pedro Munhoz. So if you were coming into this fight, you were waiting to bet on Pedro Munhoz to see what Frankie looked like for the first time at 135, and you thought to yourself, I'm going to fade the guy if he looks bad. He didn't look bad. Frankie looked excellent. So I don't understand why the money is just flooding in here on Pedro Munhoz, besides maybe the casual bettors simply being aware that the fights are tomorrow and finally looking to load up and take their shots. So I'm going to sit tight for just a minute because I think this line is going to get wider. Right now, Frankie Edgar is sitting at plus 225. I've already got a bet on the over 2.5. I think this thing may squeeze itself to a decision, and if it makes it all the way to the judges' scorecards, I don't see how you go against Frankie Edgar here. Pedro Munhoz has never been in rounds 4 or 5. Frankie has nothing but championship experience, and the fact that he is finally not at a size disadvantage, the fact that he is finally able to match his opponent, may even have a strength advantage, and he finally has a reach advantage here, I just don't see how you don't find value on over plus 200 on this championship level fighter who may just have one final run in his tank because of the new weight class here. So again, I'm going to sit tight because it looks like Pedro Munhoz might be headed towards minus 300. And if I can get plus 250 on Frankie Edgar, guarantee I'm taking that shot. I may even load up and take the shot if I get plus 230. So keep your eye out here. Check me out on Twitter at DieHardMMAPod. Those are the reads for you. I've still got a couple of things to look at and take a peek on before I lock any bets here. This is a strange event. Most of the weigh-ins really solidified the things that I already thought. I have very, very few spots that I am on this card because it's such a volatile one. I don't know what we're going to get from a lot of these fighters. So maybe we steer into that and we take a couple more of these dogs. I'm looking at betting Grant. I'm looking at betting Frankie Edgar. Possibly looking to back Ike Villaneuva and maybe Alonzo Menifield. So that's what we're looking at. That's your post-weigh-in recap. Make sure you hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions. Subscribe here to Odds HQ. Thank you all so much for the support always. Let's make that cash tomorrow. Good luck on all your action. Let's roll.